Hi everybody, this is Barry Schwartz. This is the Search Buzz Video Recap. This is the Friday, November 20th edition. We're going to have somewhat of a new format. I'm going to try to group things by categories. So we're going to first talk about Google Search, then go into Google SEO topics, then into one other topic related to Google. Then we're going to go into Bing, what happened with Bing, then AdWords, AdSense, Yahoo, and then some talk about the SEM industry. So there's a lot of things to cover in this week's recap. Also, there's a new feature in YouTube, which I hope works. Supposedly, all new uploaded videos are going to have this thing, which allows people who are, to make it more accessible. So they're going to have closed captionings on the videos automatically. So I'm pretty interested in seeing how that works as well. So I hope you like the new format, and we'll get started right away. All right, so we're going to start off with the Google SEO topic. Basically, the main thing this week to know is that Google Jazz, it's a new user interface. It's coming out. So about 1 to 3% of the Google searchers are actually getting into this new beta or user interface. Google hopes to release it sometime after the holiday season. That's according to Danny Sullivan, who interviewed Marissa over at Google. They nickname it Jazz, basically the Google Jazz interface. And it kind of looks to me a lot like, it's more colorful. There's blue buttons. There's a lot more color on the homepage as well as on the internal pages. There's also it's more streamlined with the search options, that we discussed, the show options, search options. It also looks a little bit more like the Ask 3D. Remember the old Ask 3D look? So it's pretty cool. Again, it's going to be hopefully come out, according to Google, after the holiday season sometime. And if I can, I'm going to show you a little bit about how it looks differently. If you can zoom in there, and you'll hopefully be able to see it in a second. You can see now they have blue buttons on the Google interface, and I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to zoom in here and show you the left-hand side, which is more colorful, has more options, more refinements, and it basically gives you a better and quicker way to actually navigate the search interface on Google. Some people are already seeing this, which I spotted over at the help forums. And it's pretty funny looking at what people have to say about it. One person specifically just simply asked, could you put me back to the old Google interface? I want the old one back. And somebody else said, really doesn't like the new interface. So we'll see how Google reacts to that and how people, interface with it. I think it's pretty cool, the new interface. And if you want to look at these pictures or see Danny Sullivan's post, which has a lot more pictures, we have links to that on our blog at seroundtable.com on November 20th. Sticking with the interface, Google officially launched new search snippets, which is basically breadcrumb trails in the search snippets. I think we covered this a little bit in the back a couple months ago because Google was testing this, and I wanted to show this to you. So you can see that. Let me zoom in a little bit more. You can see. Zoom out a little bit. You probably can see that now. Basically, instead of the URL, it's actually showing a breadcrumb-like trail in place of the URL. Google's doing this in cases where the URL is too long or where they think the actual breadcrumb trail might aid the user in making a decision on if they want to click on the URL or not. This is an official thing that Google announced earlier this week. We have a blog post on November 18th about this with more pictures. And again, this has been testing since August or so, and now it seems to be more official. Let's move on to the next UI thing. Google's testing a new Google image search feature in the labs. It's called Google Image Swirl. And this interface is pretty neat in that when you click on something, it looks kind of like the Wonder Wheel, where you actually click on something and it actually starts to give you more refinements based on that click. So as you see on top here are the images. If I click on an image, it then turns it into this little, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it. It basically turns into this little swirl thing, and it refines those images based on the image you clicked on. And you can keep clicking and refine those images, and you keep getting these kind of swirl types of things. It kind of reminds, like Danny said, of ice cream or something like that. It's pretty cool. If you want to test this out yourself, all you got to do is go to do a Google search and search for image swirl, or you go to image-swirl.googlelabs.com and get there yourself. Finally, on the Google search interface front, we've been talking a lot about Google social search, and earlier this week, over the weekend, it seemed like Google canceled that beta. That is now back. We have some details about why it went down or how it went down and when it went down on November 16th at SERoundtable.com, but it is back and you can opt into that. It's a pretty neat feature. We talked about Google social search, I think a couple videos ago. We have 3 topics now on the Google SEO front that I want to talk about. One was we posted on November 16th was about the page speed. I think I mentioned a little bit last week in that video, but there's been a lot more discussion as PubCon ended, and Matt talked about how page speed is going to be but it's going to be a factor in the Google search algorithm going forward, possibly in 2010, sometime in 2010 when Google launches. This is not related to caffeine, which we talked a lot about last week, but they're looking to add another factor into what qualities or what attributes they're looking for in a site they want to rank very high in the search engines, in the Google search engine. So Matt had a long video with Mike McDonald over Web Pro News. I also talked to Matt as well personally, and also we covered his session where he talked about page speed is going to be something that they want to look into in terms of how to use that as a factor in what they rank in the search results, because obviously Google wants fast results in the search results because their users want fast results. Google has always used, not always, but has for a long time used page speed in their landing page quality factors for the AdWords algorithm for ranking AdWords ads, and now it seems like Google wants to do this for the organic side in 2010. Google released a tool a week or two ago at code.google.com/speed/page-speed, which basically gives you a tool to actually look using Firefox to see what factors on your website can be easily improved and sped up using different things. So we actually did this for the Rusty Brick site. We have a long blog post at rustybrick.com/blog discussing how we use it on the Rusty Brick site if you want to take a look at that as well. But if you want to just look at the video and see how this might impact you in the future, November 16th at SERoundtable.com. Moving on to caffeine, there's been some talk about Google Caffeine going live on certain data centers. Early on the weekend, Webmaster World, we saw some posts as well as Digital Point forums. We saw some posts claiming that it was on the 216.239.59.103 data center at Google. That then shifted where people were saying it was on 66.102.7.18. On that data center, Matt Cutts said he doesn't think it's live at all yet, but then some people are thinking that it is actually live on these data centers. There is a thread over at Webmaster World and Digital Point forums tracking the different data centers that people believe Caffeine's live on. Like I said last week, Caffeine was moved off the Sandbox URL, which was at www.sandbox.google.com, and was taken down. And Matt Cutts said it's going to be pushed into one of the live data centers at Google. They just didn't know when exactly, and Matt hoped to tell us which data center it would be on, but he's not sure if he was able to do that. So now people are actually tracking to see what data center it's live on, and you have to go by IP address to actually access that. So be on the lookout for that as well. And we have a post about that on November 16th at SERoundtable.com. The final topic on Google SEO I want to talk about was how FeedBurner started to integrate with Google Analytics in more detail. So now if you're reading articles in Google Reader and FeedBurner, or any RSS reader, and FeedBurner is actually powering that feed, Google will actually automatically, without your consent, automatically append dynamic URL characters to track in Google Analytics. So you'll have $UTM source equals FeedBurner, and then the different tracking parameters that are done usually by people who actually set up the Google Analytics URL builder to actually track these variables. The problem is it's useful in terms that you get Google is actually tracking more detail and showing you that detail in Google Analytics based on your FeedBurner feeds, but it also causes SEO issues with duplicate content, having way too many URLs that people are linking to with these dynamic parameters added to them. So we have a post about how you might be able to fix it on the SEO side, or how you can actually turn it off and not have these tracking URLs put into your FeedBurner feeds automatically. If you want to learn more about that, also November 16th at SERoundtable.com. Last week, I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not, but I did cover a post, a Google web search post, where somebody was complaining that Michelle Obama, a search for Michelle Obama in image search, number one result was a racist image. The image, I think I showed it to you, was pretty bad, pretty offensive, and I was actually hoping back then that Google would remove it quickly. But Google did remove it this week, and it then caused a whole new spark of controversy, which I probably helped start. But basically, Google says they only remove image results or web search results if it if it meets one of three conditions, where it either violates Google Webmaster Guidelines, 2, it Google believes they're required to remove it by law, or 3, if the webmaster who's hosting that file or document or web page or image specifically requests that image be removed. So basically, Google didn't specifically say initially why they removed that image, and then I had a follow-up with Google who basically told me that the image was removed specifically because it violated Google Webmaster Guidelines, where the image somehow hosted malware or something like that. Matt Cutts also commented and saying that's the case. It had malware in it, so that's why it violated Google Webmaster Tools Guidelines, Google Webmaster Guidelines, and they were able to remove it for that reason. I'm just not too sure if it actually had malware on the image, if it was a hot-linked image, or what exactly was the case in that area. So there's a lot of controversy going on about why Google removed it. Was it because obviously Michelle Obama is the First Lady of the United States and has a high profile, and maybe the White House pushed Google to do it? We're not sure, but it does seem Google removed the image manually. They are saying that there was malware on it, which violated Google Webmaster Guidelines, which allowed them to easily say, hey, we can remove this image from the search results, from the image search results. Supposedly another site was starting to show that result as well, which didn't have malware, but I don't think it ranks number 1 in the search results for her name, so I don't think it's a problem yet. But I'm still trying to get clarity from Google exactly where the malware was. Was it on the image itself? Was it on the blog itself? Was it something that could have been misinterpreted? Because if you do a search for that domain, the domain still comes up without malware in it, in the web search results, but yet if you do a site command for that domain in image search, it's completely removed. So it's kind of interesting how Google handled that. I'm not sure if they talk to each other in their policies teams and how they handle things like this, but it was very interesting. All right, let's move over to the Bing topic section of the video recap. Big news with Bing this week was that there seems to be a Bing search index update happening. We noticed this morning. A lot of people are talking about how Bing's sending them a lot more traffic or a lot less traffic. There is a Webmaster World thread that's just getting started talking about the Bing update. Some people are happy with it, some people aren't. If you want more information about it with links to Webmaster World, we have it at seroundtable.com on November 20th. Also on the big news is Bing UK, the Bing search engine in the United Kingdom, has been made out of beta. They pushed out a beta, and they said so because they're now able to better understand UK searches. Obviously, like things like football versus NFL football versus soccer, and there's a lot of discussion about were they ready to actually be pushed out of beta in the UK, because there are a lot of search queries according to some UK people. I don't really understand this exactly, that don't really match the properly in terms of UK types of search behavior. And I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of discussion over this at High Rankings. There's some comments in our post as well, and we have a post about that on November 19th if you want to learn more about that. Again, Bing UK is at a beta, and Bing Search, normal search engine, has some type of index or search index update happening right now. All right, our next segment is talking about Google AdWords and what happened with Google AdWords this week. The big thing this week was that major account bans are happening. We reported on November 17th and November 16th that a lot of advertisers are noticing that they're being banned. Google spoke with me about this before they actually went ahead and started the banning, and they basically explained why the mass banning started back in September, October, how it continued, and now what they're doing, and they're actually increasing that at a higher rate, banning more and more advertisers going forward. This is not a site-level ban where they just specifically ban a specific site from advertising on AdWords. It's actually an account-level ban where they ban the whole account from from advertising on AdWords. What happens if you try to make a new account? Google has a lot of tools in there to actually figure out if you are trying to set up a new account after your previous account has been banned, and they won't let you advertise on that new account as well. Google is saying they're getting better at this. They're getting better at enforcing their policies, their existing policies, and they're going to do bans, and they're going to permanently make them happen, and they're not going to let you come back. They're saying a lot of this is because there's a lot of scam sites out there, and they don't want their searchers to land on these scam sites. AdWords Advisor posted a thread over at Webmaster World explaining why this is happening as well. In short, a lot of advertisers are unhappy, but Nick Fox, the guy who basically leads the AdWords quality department over there, told me that this is a very small minority of advertisers, and they're doing this, and advertisers know what they're doing, and they should expect it. The one thing is, Google has improved their communication process during these bans, and they're going to email advertisers when they have been banned and allow them and clearly explain to them how they can appeal that process. Every appeal will get a response, either yay or nay, and that's how that works. Again, we have more details, lots of links to the history about this, how to handle this in the future, and some of the official words from Google on this and Nick Fox on this at scroundtable.com on November 17th. Moving on, talking about scams, we have a guest post from a reader who's been contributing to the blog for years and years now. His first name is Kazia. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. Kasia Bauer. He's a search marketer from Poland. He runs a site called divbi.com. He also has a magazine, a blog on search engines, specifically written in Polish. Anyway, he wrote a whole long article, which we posted on SE Roundtable, because we normally don't do guest articles, but this one was really good with forum threads linking to it, where he showed the problem with scam ads in Poland, Google Polish ads, and Google's aware of these ads, and he showed examples of why there's, what ads are still there, how they're coming up, and how they're basically scamming searchers. So there's a lot of discussion about this as well in the Polish advertising business. Lots of comments. If you want to learn more about this, there's lots of great screenshots and details about how this works. Take a look at SERoundtable.com on November 18th. Also on the AdWords front, Google seems to be now enforcing and not allowing exceptions for the 35-character display URL policy. So back in the day where you had a 35-character display URL, the display URL is the URL shown in the ads on Google search. That was up to 35 characters, but Google allowed people to make exceptions on that rule by emailing Google with why they want that exception. Google said now they're no longer allowing exceptions, and we have discussions about this over at Google AdWords Help Center. We have a post about this at SERoundtable.com on November 20th, today, Friday, and we're also noticing that using the dynamic keyword insertion techniques no longer helps you get the longer title, AdWords title. So if you want to learn more about this, November 20th at SERoundtable.com. Moving on, to the last topic on AdWords is that Google has expanded their product listing ads, those product ads that show up in these search results. Remember, I showed you pictures of how products are actually showing up in the ads on the Google search results. This is actually a CPA model. They're expanding this right now. More U.S. searchers are going to be able to see them. They are commission-based, like I said, meaning you only advertisers only pay when somebody actually buys, and they pay a percentage on that buy, or a dollar amount on that buy. We go through all the history on our blog at SERoundtable.com on November 16th about it, with showing pictures. And again, you should be, if you're in the United States, seeing more and more of these product ads in the search results going forward. Let's now talk about AdSense. The big news this week on the AdSense front is that Google has been testing what is called featured ads, and these featured ads have little gold, yellow stars on the top right of the title of the ad. So let me zoom in on here and show you how these ads look like, so you guys could get a look at, and you probably see them every now and then. It's a very limited test, Google told me, but here you go. So as you see, I'm zooming in there, you see the little star. You see the little star over there, and then you mouse over, it says featured ad, this little star over here, and if you mouse over the ad, it actually says featured ad. So this is really in-your-face type of ad. It actually brings a lot of attention to the ad. Obviously, back in the day where people were placing images next to their ads in order to encourage users, their readers, to actually click on the ads, Google finally took a policy against that, and has not allowed publishers to actually put images next to their ads. Google is now placing images next to their ads, but this is not allowing. They're not allowing the publisher to do that. They're doing this in their own way, and they're saying this is fine. I'm sure publishers don't care. They just want to have an increased click-through rate, which increases their earnings. And at the same time, Google issued a statement basically saying these ads are driven by the featured ads are more contextually, they're more quality and more relevant to the actual users. And I assume that means that they're more contextually relevant based on the content of the page. I'm not exactly sure yet, but this is a very limited test. Also, I personally was upgraded into the new AdSense beta interface. That you log into the console, you have these new reports, new clean interface. So I have lots of screenshots about this. And if you want to take a look at this new interface, if you're not into it yet, but you'll probably get it eventually, go to November 18th at SERoundtable.com. The final AdSense topic I want to talk about was that Google has been disabling AdSense accounts based on them using tamper data, which is a Firefox extension. Tamper data basically allows you to view and modify HTTP and HTTPS headers and post parameters. It could be used for a lot of good with webmasters type of related stuff, but people are supposedly using this in order to trick Google into thinking that they are based in a different country. And Google doesn't allow certain countries to participate in the AdSense product, so they're actually banning certain AdSense publishers from participating in AdSense based on them using tamper data to actually change their account data. I'm not exactly sure how this is working and how many people this is impacting. It seems like a lot of the people who are getting these bans are clueless as to why and have no idea what tamper data is. So maybe they bought an account from somebody else. I'm not exactly sure. But we have lots of details with lots of links explaining why this is happening on November 19th at SEMroundtable.com. There's one Yahoo topic I'd like to talk about. Obviously, Yahoo is going through a transition. I didn't write about this yet, but Yahoo and Microsoft are supposedly very close to finalizing their deal, which is good news for, I guess, Microsoft. I guess Yahoo as well, I don't know. But Yahoo cannot stop innovating on the search side because right now they don't have a deal officially with Microsoft until the papers are officially signed. Anyway, we have a post on November 20th, which is today, discussing how Yahoo has added a new developing news box on their search results. So if you do a search that triggers a developing news story or breaking news story, Yahoo will show you this new news box, which has links to news articles, photos, videos, and also Twitter. Obviously, a lot of search engines are doing Twitter integration, so Yahoo had to join in on that as well. The final topic is related to the SEM industry. Danny Sullivan did a really nice, warm article on looking back 10 years ago, a few days ago, was the first ever search marketing conference ever in history of the search marketing industry. Danny Sullivan obviously was the person responsible for all the programming of the show, the content of the show. He also talks about how Chris Elwell was responsible for bringing the idea to Danny and doing all the business side of things when he worked back at the old company, Search Engine Strategies. So Chris Elwell now and Danny are obviously working together, and they're co-owners of Third Door Media, which hosts obviously Search Engine Land and the Search Marketing Expo events. I'm obviously part of that as well. But Danny looks back at the first search marketing conference ever, and he has a long post talking about who came to that conference, who spoke. He actually talks about how Yahoo was the big player. Everybody waited online to talk to the Yahoo reps, but how Google was the small player, and actually Google's founders were actually at the conference. They roller skated onto the stage, and they talked about how spam is not an issue for Google. So there's lots of discussion about this. Pretty fun to read if you are part of the search industry. And we have posts with links to this blog post from Danny on November 19th at SEMroundtable.com. That's the November 20th, Friday edition of the Search Buzz Video Recap. Again, my name is Barry Schwartz. I hope you like the new format. Let me know. I'll keep it going in this format if you like it. And I do hope the closed captioning stuff works. That would be fun to actually look at. Everyone, have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.